somehow I ended up got locked and I don't have keys to open that. My keys don't work. I don't know.
I have never ever locked that one. I've used every key I have. Let me try mine.
Yeah, no, I tried mine. I couldn't. Yeah.
You go see if there's anything in the keypads up here.
All right. We're having problems with audio today. So if we can't get into the control box to turn on the sound, I need you to come forward into the front section. Could you come forward? David and Janice and everyone in the back, can you come forward? Because right now, I'm going to have to use more of my voice because we can't get into the audio.
Yeah, we got some extra ones.
So come on down the front. Closer. Stay where you are. How did that happen?
Yeah.
What did you do, John? I want to know. All right, good morning, everyone. It came on. So, Alton, you don't have any idea that you were going to have to come forward and sit in the front section. Yeah, that's right. All the lessons and sermons are fresh right here. Is that Karina? Oh, did the girls come? One of them did. Was it Helena or Aurelia? Helena, all right. Good morning to everyone here in person. We're meeting here at the Mountain View Church of Christ, 1080 East LaSalle Street, here in Colorado Springs. Bible classes start at 9:30. I hope you weren't so inconvenienced by having to push your clocks forward an hour. It rubbed me up the wrong way. Why can't they just leave time alone? Amen. And the church said, amen. And to all those who are watching on Zoom and YouTube, good morning. This is our second lesson. One is saying, if this is supposed to be a study about the book of Revelation, why are we going to Daniel? Because Daniel holds the key to what is shown up or culminates at the very end of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, after Greece. It would be after Babylon, after the Medes and the Persians, after Greece, and then in the days of the Roman Empire, which basically started 27 BC. and would end before 500 AD because the Roman Empire was breaking up. So we're going to be talking today about Daniel's years in Babylon. We think Daniel and his three friends, just to give you an example, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were deported along with about 25% of the people that Babylon wanted to re-educate. So that would have been military people, commanders, the nobles, their children, etc., etc., and they were all transported. Not everybody left. I mean, they couldn't have left Judah empty, but they took about 25% of what was left. If you wanted to get a rough estimate, you might want to go, say, to 2 Kings 24, and there in 2 Kings 24 you get an idea. If you add the numbers up, it's only 20,000. And one would imagine Judah being larger. If you take 25%, you know, that's a very small number, because we do know that just a little under 50,000 go back to Judah and to Jerusalem during the three waves that occurred in Nehemiah and Ezra. Daniel is the foundation and the key to Revelation. And we will, next week, I believe, John Hamilton will take lessons 3 through 6. John, correct?
9.
Okay, good man, excellent. Last time I saw it was 3.
3 through 8.
Okay. So, apocalyptic language basically just means an uncovering, revealing. That's what Revelation is all about. That's what prophecy is all about. A quick review. Understanding Revelation requires understanding Daniel. That's why we're in Daniel. Both books use apocalyptic language. Prophecies made in Daniel are ultimately fulfilled in the book of Revelation. So what was Babylon like? Babylon at this time, Warner is my historian. Would this Nebuchadnezzar be Nebuchadnezzar II? Because Nebuchadnezzar I, the father, started it, but by the time you get to the Nebuchadnezzar that we read about in Daniel, this is the golden age of Babylon. What was the place like when the deportees, the people that were taken, handpicked, exported for re-education, to be able to then return and govern and rule as, well, people who would no longer think Jewishly, but they would think more of the Babylonian interest, to keep that part of the world under Babylonian control. Now, here is a wee map of the Babylonian Empire, 6th to 7th century. The dotted red line is actually the route that the deportees would have taken to Babylon itself. The Babylonians had taken Egypt. They had taken portions of Syria. They had taken Judah. They had taken everything that you can see that's marked in yellow, all the way and far beyond Tarsus, and all the way down to the Persian Gulf. Here is an artist's representation of Babylon at the time when Daniel was there. There is the temple of Marduk, the ziggurat. Looks kind of like a pyramid. And it was a beautiful city. The river Euphrates running through there. Of course, in between the two, Euphrates and the Tigris River, is Babylon. A little closer up, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. It must have been beautiful. Really beautiful. Here is the Ishtar Gate in the city of Babylon about 575 BC, during the time of King Nebuchadnezzar. Do you know where the Ishtar Gate is now? It's in a museum in Berlin. After World War II, World War I, there was an archaeologist, Robert Koldewey. They say he's a German archaeologist, but with a name like that, it doesn't seem rather von Koldewey. They carted it off to Germany. Now, the Persians destroyed that. The Persians destroyed it. And what the German archaeologists did, they unearthed sections, large sections and portions of the main gate going into Babylon. That's the Ishtar Gate. 9 or 8 gates, 8 to 9 gates. Herodotus said that there were 100 gates. I think he must have been talking through his toga. Here is a representation of a winged lion. And we know the story of Daniel in the lion's den. Lion is a symbol of great power. Here's one of Nebuchadnezzar's many palaces, one in the north that is or was being excavated. The book of Daniel. Daniel is the author. We read in Daniel 7:1 and verse 28, I, Daniel. It is confirmed by Jesus. Jesus mentions Daniel the prophet in Matthew 24:15. Sections of the book were written either in Aramaic and Hebrew. Daniel lived and died in Babylon, we believe. He would have been maybe, Mike, in his 80s, in his 90s. He did not, as far as we know, return to Judah or Jerusalem. Here is a 4-part. Now, last week I gave you a 3-part. Now we'll give you a 4-part outline. Chapters 1, verse 1 to 21 is, we're in the court of Nebuchadnezzar. Chapter 2, verses 1 to 49, Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. Have you ever thought who was behind the dreams? Who was behind the dreams that Pharaoh had in the days of Joseph? Who was behind the dream of the high priest in the days of Jesus about putting things in the mouth of a man, giving a man thought? There are lots and lots of occasions where God is certainly, his hand is involved to bring about what God wishes to do. 4 episodes in Daniel's life, chapter 3, verse 1 through chapter 6, verse 28, and 4 visions of Daniel's prophecy. Daniel chapter 7 through chapter 12, verse 13. Daniel the person, very quickly. He's a young Jewish noble, very young. Some say as young as 14 or 17. but he's certainly not 20. He is related to King Zedekiah. He had the gift of interpreting dreams. Kind of like as Joseph was to the Pharaoh, Daniel will be to Nebuchadnezzar. He is the key. And it all locks or unveils what happens when Jesus gets here, and what happens when the church gets here, what happens when the church begins to grow and spread throughout the world. So he spent about 72 years in Babylon, ending in 534 BC. These are all guesstimates. We don't have exacts. He lived through perhaps 5 or 4 kings, and the last one being what? Cyrus. Cyrus the Great, we call him. And he is God's witness inside a pagan palace. Daniel chapter 1, in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. The Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, along with some of the vessels of the house of God. And he brought them to the land of Shinar, to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasury of his God. Do we think, Warner, that included the Ark of the Covenant? Not till Zerubbabel's 6. Yeah.
But I think according to Ezekiel, the Lord's glory departed.
Yes, it's gone. Verse 3 says, Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, the chief of his officials, to bring in some of the sons of Israel, and that will include members of the royal family and members who are called nobles. That would include Daniel. That would include Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The youths in whom, the word youths here can also be translated children. The young men, in whom no defect were, who were good looking. They didn't want ugly nobles. They didn't want ugly royal, nobody with warts, skin blemishes. They wanted someone, and we were talking about this just before Bible class, was Daniel considered as a eunuch? Was he made a eunuch to be in the king's palace?
This is also the first time that the Israelites were called Jews.
Warner just said this is the first time that the Israelites were referred to as Jews.
Because they came from Judah.
Yeah, from Judah. So, no defects, good looking, showing intelligence. How do you show intelligence? Was it because they were all wearing glasses? I don't think so. They were educated, endowed with understanding and discerning knowledge, and who had the ability for serving in the king's court. In other words, they were the prime cut, the prime selection. So, and he ordered him to teach them literature and language of the Chaldeans. The word Chaldeans there is Babylonians. Verse 5 says, the king appointed them a daily ration, a portion from the king's choice food. In other words, whatever the king was eating, they were eating. If it was burger and fries, they got burger and fries. And from the wine which he drank, and appointed that they should be educated for 3 years. at the end of which they were to enter the king's personal service. These will be the diplomats. These will be the people who will be running part of the empire of Babylon. These will be the people who will be perhaps selected to go back sometime. But that won't happen for many years. 70 years at least. Verse 6 and 7 says, Now among them from the sons of Judah were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The commander of the officials assigned the new names to them, and to Daniel he assigned the name of Belteshazzar. Well, I bet that was hard to get used to. He thinks, I'm still Daniel, but I have to be known as Belteshazzar. To Hananiah, he got the name of, Shadrach. To Mishael, Meshach. And to Azariah, Abednego. These were their Babylonian names, to go along with their new Babylonian identity. I'm going to take a wee drink here. Wet my whistle.
In terms of Babylonian, these were elevated names instead of the Jewish name related to God. These related to the Babylonian God.
Yes. Very similar to the name that Joseph was given, Zephanath Paneah. The new names reflected the gods of Babylon. Verses 8 and 9 of chapter 1, But Daniel made up his mind that he would not defile himself with the king's choice food, or drink the wine. So he sought permission from the commander. This is all about diet. This is all about getting Daniel into position with the king. Excuse me. Now God granted Daniel the favor and compassion in the sight of the commander of the officials. God did. Verse 10, the commander of the officials said, I'm afraid of my lord the king. He was sort of nervous. Who appointed you, your food, your drink, and why, what you're going to wear, and I'm sure hairstyles were different. They were all curly. Beards. So, for why should he see your faces looking haggard? Excuse me, I'm going to have to. Thanks. I had a dry cough. Thank you, John. Cupbearer to the teacher. Right. You're going to cause me to lose my job, maybe my head. Daniel said to the overseer, okay, 10 days. Just 10 days, 2 weeks. Please test your servants for 10 days, and let us be given some vegetables and water to drink. Where's the protein? If you don't eat protein, what happens? It could have adverse effects if all you're noshing on is vegetables and water.
How about the manna?
Oh yeah, the manna too.
Advise on that.
So, 10 days. It's a contest. All the others, they're getting the king's rich wine and food, while Daniel and the others They're on a diet of vegetables and water.
But these others are also Judeans.
So then let our appearance be observed in your presence and the appearance of the youths who are eating the king's choice food. And deal with your servants according to what you see. So, he listened. And then he tested them for 10 days. Nobody was seeking in a hamburger. No one was giving them, stuff on the sly. Nope. It was vegetables and water. That was it. At the end of 10 days, their appearance seemed better, and they were fatter than all the youths who had been eating the king's choice food. So the overseer continued to withhold their choice foods and wines and kept giving them the vegetables. Certainly, it might have helped with any kidney problems that they might have. It says, as for these 4 youths, God gave them knowledge and intelligence in every branch and literature. Did you see that? God gave. God's hand is in everything that's going on. God's hand, he allowed Jehoiakim to lose the kingdom. God's hand was to bring in the deportees to Babylon. They didn't know that God was doing this. Although I will say Nebuchadnezzar does get an inkling. So God gave them knowledge and intelligence in every branch of literature and wisdom. Daniel even understood all kinds of visions and dreams. Do you remember John the cupbearer to Pharaoh, who was in the jail with Joseph? Of course, he didn't tell anybody about it after he got released and back into the service of Pharaoh. It was only when Pharaoh had a dream, and it turned out that Joseph's interpretation of that dream would lead Joseph to become the grand vizier of all Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. When you come to the end of the book of Genesis, Joseph tells his family, you thought you were hurting me, but you didn't know that God was trying to save you through me and save the nation and the people of Pharaoh. So, you going for the second bell? Go the long route. Go to the back of the auditorium and then... Huh? I know. The king talked with them, and out of them all, he says, no one was found, not one was found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the king's personal service, close to the king. Jews, close to the king. They dressed like Babylonians. They talked like Babylonians. But they were still God's people. Verses 20 to 21, for every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king consulted them, he found them 10 times better than all his magicians. They're in prime position. Daniel is in prime position. Better than all the magicians and the conjurers who were in all his realm. And Daniel continued until the first year of Cyrus the king. That's when Daniel fades away. Daniel is the key to what's going to be read and found out about in the book of Revelation. 600 to 800 years way in the future. So Daniel's text in chapter 1, he's trained by complete immersion into Babylonian culture, he and his friends and everyone else that they took. The four refused to eat the improper foods of the king. It was too rich. They didn't want it. The impact of Daniel's decisions to serve God lasted for centuries, which he did not know it then. Think about the things that we are doing for God today. And should God tarry in bringing his Son, the second coming, there are many things that we will not know about that we had played a small part in God's great plan. You never know if doing of the right in your everyday routine might have a tremendous impact later. Even by doing the reverse, avoiding to do the right thing, might eliminate you from serving God mightily in the kingdom. Remember Esther? For such a time as this, you are the key. You are the one that will save the people. And if she doesn't get the welcome off with her head, but she did. So, in any case, we see that Daniel's position is secured with God and the king by the way he conducts himself in the early stages of the Babylonian captivity. Now, chapter 2. The king has an unusual dream. Nebuchadnezzar demands an interpretation without revealing what's in the dream. No, you tell me. That doesn't go down well with the magicians. It's all under penalty of death. I had a dream. Tell me what I dreamt. Duh. Where did this dream come from? Who put it in Nebuchadnezzar's mind? God did. Daniel in Revelation, it's about the telescoping prophetic visions of 4 earthly kingdoms that will be revealed because of the dream. Something about the present time. Something about the nearer time. And something about the more distant time. Right. Here's a dramatization of what it might have been like in Nebuchadnezzar's head. Nebuchadnezzar's strange dream, a head of gold, chest and arms made of silver. And as you go down, the metals become more and more inferior. As you look down, okay. Legs of iron, then feet of iron and clay. That's part 1. So, it was huge. It was big. In order for us to beat time, I'm just going to rush through this because I want you to see the second part of the dream. So, its appearance was awesome, fearful. Legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. This is Daniel saying, and you continued looking until a stone was cut out without hands, and it struck the statue on its feet. It's the weakest at the feet, and crushed everything. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were all crushed at the same time. In other words, all of those kingdoms would be consigned to the dust of history. And the little stone that hit the feet, it became a huge mountain. The church, the kingdom of God here on earth. This was the dream. Now we will tell its interpretation before the king. You, O king, are the King of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given the kingdom, the power, the strength, and the glory. You wouldn't want to say anything else, would you? And wherever the sons of men dwell, or the beasts of the field, or the birds of the sky, he has given them into your hand. This is the golden age of Babylon. You are the head of gold. And after you will arise another kingdom inferior to you. Then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which will rule over all the earth. And there will be a fourth, strong as iron, inasmuch as iron crushes and shatters everything. So like iron that it breaks in pieces, it will crush and break all these in pieces. So, in that you saw the feet and its toes, partly of potter's clay, partly of iron. But it will be a divided kingdom. Rome will deteriorate. As for the toes, the feet were partly of iron, partly of pottery. So some of the kingdom will be strong, and part of it will be very brittle. In that you saw the iron mixed with common clay, they will combine with one another in the seed of men. But they will not adhere to one another. It will not be lasting. Even as iron does not combine with pottery. So, he says, this is key. In the days of those kings, the God of heaven who put you on your throne will set up a kingdom which will never be destroyed. That kingdom will not be left for another people to take. It will crush and put an end to all these kingdoms, but it will itself endure forever. Telescope all the way from Babylon, the 600s, the 500s, the 6th century BC, all the way to the beginning of the Roman Empire, 27 BC, all the way to its end in the 5th century AD. And the church lasts today. God's kingdom rules. So he says, inasmuch as you saw a stone that was cut out of the mountain without hands, that it crushed the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God has made known to the king, to you, what will take place in the future, so that the dream is true and its interpretation trustworthy. Here's the second part. This is really good. Go ahead. There it goes. All these kingdoms and any other kingdom consigned to the dust of history. All right. Can we go on to the next slide, please? There we go. There we go. Here's your history. Whoops, come back here. There we go. The Babylonians, 606 to 536. The Medes and the Persians, 536 to 330 BC. The Greeks, 330 to 146 BC. The Roman Empire, 27 BC, and I picked 27 BC because that was the year that the Roman Republic came to an end, and an empire was born in the presence of Augustus Caesar. It ended 476 AD. The Romans pulled out one of the farthest posts in their history was they couldn't take Scotland because they didn't like haggis. They pulled everything out of Britain and went back to shore up the crumbling remnants of a broken and unsustainable kingdom that was once iron and now is consigned to history. But what lasts is the church and God's eternal kingdom in the days of those kings. We going for the first bell now? Oh, good man, good man. Sorry, Dick, I thought you were going for the second.
I just got the count.
Okay. Daniel's book of historical prophecy, it explains what was going on in present time, what was going on or going to happen in nearer time, but still in the future, and what was going on in the future time, which reveals the exact number and order of things as they would develop. It foresees the time and circumstances for the establishment of the church and God's great kingdom, eternal kingdom, here on earth. My kingdom is not of this world, he said to Pilate. It also correctly reveals that none of the four earthly kingdoms that come out of the dream would ever survive or be revived ever again. Next week, it will be John's turn. 4 episodes in the life of Daniel. And I hope we got a sense of what that dream might have been like. It kind of helps us to visualize history was being made, and it came out of a man's dream that God put there. And God put a man so close to the king, he was the only one in the kingdom, the only one in the Chaldean Empire, the Babylonian Empire, who was the key to unlocking what was happening in that dream. Later on, you will read in Daniel, from Daniel 2 to Daniel 8 to Daniel 11, more and more about an expansion of what was going on from that original dream. We will stop there. Thank you. And thank you, John, for the drink of water.
I also look at Revelation as the end to Job, where Satan finally
Yes.
gets his.
Yeah, he gets his upcoming, his downcoming.
Yeah. Good class.
Thank you.